Court Reporter with Stovall and Associates.
Good evening. Welcome to Court Reporter with Stovall and Associates. I'm your host, Mike Iglinski. Tonight's guest is Bill Dolan. He is a candidate for the Pahrump Town Board and, in fact, a former town board member. Thanks for being with us tonight, Bill. Do appreciate you coming back. You've been on quite a few times.
Been on a few times. Thank you for inviting me to come on.
Oh, it's nice to sit down and chat with you. One of the things I always enjoy when we talk is hearing a little bit about your diverse background, and also you have a pretty deep knowledge as far as communities. So we're going to go through various issues tonight, and hopefully really do some recapping on things, some of the changes since the last time you've been on the show.
That'd be fine.
Okay. So anyway, for the people that don't know of you, which I don't think there's too many, but give a little bit about your background, how you came to Pahrump, and some of your time spent in public service.
Well, I've lived in Nevada since 1984. I am married to Marilyn Dolan, formerly Marilyn Maddox. Mm-hmm. She is an 18-year resident of the town of Pahrump. When I lived in Las Vegas, I did volunteer quite a bit of my time to the North Las Vegas mayor's office, so to speak. I was appointed by Mayor Mike Montana as one of the city commissioners up there. Pretty much a gopher. Whatever he wanted me to do, I took care of for him. Learned a lot from that point in time. Moved out here in 2004. Because the congestion in Las Vegas for people who owned horses was just a little bit too much, so we decided to come out here with our horses.
Did you have one of those little horse properties in North Las Vegas there?
We didn't. We boarded.
Oh, okay.
But we still had areas to ride when I first moved out there. Mm-hmm. And then as growth came, and as you know, North Las Vegas was one of the largest, fastest growing communities in the country. At 1,500 people a month were moving there.
Right.
There was less and less area for the horse people to ride. So I just decided at one point in time that was enough, and it wasn't fair to our horses to have to trailer them when we wanted to ride them.
Sure.
And out here there's a lot of vast open lands, and that's what we like.
I noticed one of the things, it's kind of funny I didn't realize that you had a horse property in Las Vegas. When I was growing up in Las Vegas, we in fact used to ride horses too. Over on like the Sahara and Lindell area. We'd actually ride across Sahara on a horse every once in a while. It's even when I was a kid, so it wasn't all that long ago. But yeah, the town has changed. And you even see today in North Las Vegas where you have horse property that's kind of encapsulated around like master plan communities.
Right, and as those properties are being sold by the owners or by estates, as the owners become older and leave,
right.
Or pass away, the zoning goes away.
That's true. That's true. Well, anyway, so then you brought yourself and your wife at the time out to Pahrump? Out to
Pahrump, and like I said, in 2004 we built a house in Mountain Falls, mm-hmm. and we've been coming out here for quite some time for the winery. We'd come out and get wine, have lunch.
Sure.
We really enjoyed this area out here, and that's why we picked this area over other areas we looked at to move to.
Sure. Okay, so then that brought you into your interest. I guess you'd already had an interest in public service, but you really started becoming more politically active when you moved into the Pahrump Valley?
When I first moved out here, I started going to town board meetings, county commission meetings, planning commission meetings, because I like to know what's going on in my community that I live in.
Sure.
I will say shortly thereafter I was stricken with cancer, and for the next couple of years didn't do anything. When that was all said and done, I was back to work. And it was shortly thereafter is when I received a phone call from Jim Gibbons asking me if I would take an appointment to the Pahrump Town Board to replace Mr. John McDonald, who had served the community.
How did that phone call go? I want to have you appointed to a position that there's heavy responsibility and, by the way, no compensation.
He didn't. He called me up and he said that I understand that you're no longer in North Las Vegas and you're in the town of Pahrump. And I said, yes, I am. And I was basically asked if I would accept the governor's appointment to the Pahrump Town Board, mm-hmm. To finish out a little over 2.5 years of Mr. McDonald's seat. And I said, well, of course, I have to check with the boss.
Sure. And
I did, and my wife at the time said, why don't you go ahead and do it?
How time-consuming was that position when you took it on? Did you expect for it to be a one of these things that would really take a major part of your life, or did you figure you could serve part-time?
It is a part-time position, but it's how much time you're willing to submit to. Near the end, I was putting in anywhere from 20 to 30 hours a week.
Wow.
Doing research, making phone calls, going through backup, talking to constituents.
Sure. Okay, well, I mean, that leads to, the town board today. And in fact, I think you have an interesting perspective because, one, you've gone through an election in the past with the appointment. But, I think that even in the limited time since you, in fact, have left the town board, we've seen some changes. And we've still weathered the hard times that, started in 2007, 2008. So you kind of saw the growth all the way into today's, today's Nye County. How do you feel that the current compilation of the town board has done? Has it been a different town board since when you served on? Or do you feel as if there's still remnants of some of the issues that you were seeing being discussed today?
That's a hard thing to say. There were 3 new people elected to the town board,
right,
which all brought different and diverse backgrounds. Harley Culkin, Carolyn Endersby, and Tom Waters. The 2 remaining were Mr. Darby and Ms. Parker.
Right.
So it brought a new mix to the soup, so to speak. And were there times that I saw, when I sat back and saw they didn't always agree on everything or work towards, a set goal? Yeah. But there were times that I've seen that this town board has come together and worked together to try and move the town of Pahrump forward.
I remember that one of the issues that was brought up when the current version of the town board first started adjourning was that the meetings were going till 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. I mean, we're talking 6-7 hour meetings sometimes.
Yes.
And maybe that was just having the new members not really understanding how to properly, keep those meetings productive. But it also served to give more of a voice to the community. I know that people, when they go to these town boards, have a tendency to be a little boisterous. Anyway, I do want to talk a little bit more about that. We're going to take our first commercial break. We'll talk about some of the things that you've seen, and then as far as your ideas, because now you're throwing your hat back in the ring. So we'll be right back after this commercial break with town board candidate Bill Dolan.
Court Reporter with Stovall and Associates.
Welcome back to Court Reporter with Stovall and Associates. I'm your host, Mike Uglinski. Tonight's guest is Bill Dolan. He is a candidate for the Pahrump Town Board and also former town board member. Before we went to the first commercial break, we were discussing your presence in the town board. And in fact, you were known as one of the more forceful members of the town board. And like you had said in the past, people knew exactly where they stood with you. I think that when your presence wasn't being felt was when we saw these longer meetings. Could you talk a little bit about that? I mean, people have always said Bill Dolan, he's one of these guys that really charges forward with things.
Well, you have to understand one of the biggest ideals of being either an appointed or elected official is to have a base of constituents. And as my wife can tell you, there were times when I would have 2 phones going at one time. Emails coming in from constituents who either couldn't make the meeting or were going to be at the meeting and didn't want to speak, but wanted to send their thoughts over. And yes, I have been told by many people that they know where they stand with me. But I look at it this way, those are principles. Principles aren't principles if you only stand by them when they're convenient for you.
This is true. I think that one of the another criticism that might kind of is very related was that you were sometimes limiting to people as they would ramble at these town board meetings, and in fact, kind of keeping these meetings from becoming unruly. How do you in real time decipher when somebody in fact is contributing to the conversation versus just muddying the waters with nonsense?
And that's where your chairman comes in. your chairman has to be able to sit up there and assess. Now, I was only the vice chairman. I did run a few meetings. You have to be able to look at what's going on and take corrective action to keep the meeting productive. Now, the legislature in the last session took a big chunk of that and gave a helping hand to chairmen of any boards, county commissioners, advisory boards, or town boards. And that is through the open meeting law, with the changes that continually come down the pike. Some people have said it's limiting on the free speech. You have to understand, the town board, in our case the Pahrump Town Board, does not write the laws. They are there to follow, not interpret.
You're held accountable to what the legislature is
given to.
You're
held accountable. And if you think your free speech is being impinged on, then I would say that is something you need to take up with the legislature, your assemblymen, your state senators.
Well, in fact, you also have a remedy in the Attorney General's office, too. Open meeting law violations, in fact, can be reported directly to them. You
can report them directly to, and they go to George Taylor, who is the state of Nevada guru for open meeting laws.
It's funny, the first time we had really, as far as our firm going and looking at some issues that are associated with open meeting laws, I think I pulled a packet from the AG's office, and I think that the handbook to simplify the open meeting law guidelines was almost 100 pages long.
Yes. Yes.
which is kind of comical if you think about it.
It can get very confusing.
Yes.
And I will say that, are the open meeting laws a good thing or a bad thing? Again, that's not for me to interpret, but to follow. But if we're going to have them on the books, they should apply to everybody. At this current time, open meeting laws only pertain to municipalities and counties. Right. They do not relate to the state. So do I think maybe that should be looked at a little bit? Yes, I do. Because some folks, and folks right here in town, feel that their rights are being violated for free speech. But again, that's an issue to take up with the legislature.
It's an interesting thing because these town board meetings, I think they kind of serve as the tip of the spear for real local issues, and people feel as if they have a voice almost exclusively at town board meetings. Is there any other remedy available to somebody that, I mean, outside of standing up to the microphone and speaking in front of the crowd, which some people don't find exactly the most desirable thing to do? Do you think that a town board member does owe it to their constituency to have open lines of communication, or is it just simply not feasible to do it with everybody?
Each town board member has to say how much time they're going to be willing to commit to their constituency. I will tell you, my private cell phone, besides my town cell phone when I was on the board, was out there for anybody. If you called me and said, look, I want to sit down and talk to you about an issue, we set a meeting. The town board does not have individual offices at the town office. They don't even have an individual office to work out of.
Right.
So you can't say you have an open door policy if you don't have an office.
You have an open air policy.
I was pretty much open anytime. I would get stopped in the supermarkets. I'd get stopped in Walmart, at the gas station. And of course, I mean, I receive hundreds of texts a week and emails. And you go through them and you get the drift of how the residents feel.
Let me ask you this, because you're in a unique position to actually comment on this accurately. The squeaky wheel gets the oil, and sometimes in rural areas, and I think that Pahrump in itself, is on the borderline of being considered a rural area. It's kind of it's a larger area, obviously a larger population, but still. Did you find that the constituency that you were having active, or say proactive communication, where they in fact were pursuing you, were really relaying the issues the way that the general public felt?
I can't say for, if it's how the general public felt, it's how they felt.
Right.
And I should also add here, I not only received phone calls, texts, and messages on issues, on people that were pro issues, but also people that were against issues. And that's very important when wanting to make up or having to be able to make up your mind. As a sitting member, and I don't care if it's a town board, municipality, or county, you do your homework. You read your backup. You ask your questions. Need it be to the lawyers, to the Legislative Counsel Bureau. You review the NRSs. You review the policies and procedures. Sometimes our hands are just tied that if you vote a particular way on an issue, you're voting to violate something. And you took an oath to uphold not only the laws of the state of Nevada and the United States, but the Constitution of both.
We're going to take our second break, and then when we come back, we're going to talk about one of the issues I know that you've been very vocal about in corporation, and then also some of the developments in the town since you, in fact, have left the town board, okay? So we'll be right back after this commercial break with town board candidate Bill Dolan.
Court Reporter with Stovall and Associates.
Welcome back to Court Reporter with Stovall and Associates. I'm your host, Mike Igwinski. Tonight's guest is town board candidate Bill Dolan. Before we went to last commercial break, we were talking about one of the issues that I think that you've become very vocal and have been known for, and in fact, that's incorporation. Is this still a real active conversation with the constituency today? And in fact, if elected to the town board, is this going to be something that you're going to be still spearheading like you did before?
Well, I can't say spearheading. I spearheaded before because I was part of that incorporation advisory board. And I will say the same thing I said back then, the same thing I said after 2 town board meetings ago, and that is my whole premise is to let the voters, the residents, the constituents of this community vote on incorporation, yes or no, to get the information out and educated, not rumors, not anything else, the facts. And that's what needs to happen.
I think that one of the things that was an interesting hurdle when you started talking about incorporation and people voting, you do have a large population of snowbirds here, people that frankly aren't always living in Nye County, or in the town of Pahrump, I should say. How do you keep those people informed outside of holding these I guess open air conferences or maybe having articles written in the newspapers? Do you find a way that people are actually able to communicate with both the full-time residents versus, say, the seasonal residents?
And some of the seasonal residents that, as you call them, snowbirds that come in, they get involved in the community to an extent. But again, they don't vote here. They usually vote back in their home state where they're from.
Right.
When I was on the board, there was many a nights I would spend at civic groups, out at just groups in people's homes, talking to them. If I am lucky enough to be reseated to the town board, I will continue that. And I plan on wanting to take that one step farther, and that is hold, either bi-monthly or quarterly meetings with the candidates, with the sitting board member. Have them move them around, put one in the north end, put one in the south end, center of town. Have people come, have some coffee, and just ask your questions. As I'm out there now with this campaign, I'm carrying a clipboard, and on there I ask every person I talk to, what do you want to see in your town?
I think that one of the things that is always an issue with any town, but really, with an area that's been as hard hit as Pahrump, economic development. Since your time leaving the town board, how do you feel about the health as far as the economy here in Pahrump?
I don't think it's moved forward that much. We have had new businesses open. We've had some businesses close. I do know that, and this is an ironic figure, that as of January 1st, 2012, there were 2,012 businesses registered in the town of Pahrump.
That's funny.
It is. Do we need jobs? Yes, we do. The community assessment report that was done, and that was a joint venture between the town board and the county commissioners. That was eye-opening, because everything revolved back to people saying they wanted jobs, jobs, jobs. And there was a large presentation of it up at the Nugget a few months back, and where they laid out all the issues. And I think that if people, as they stated, pro and con, would come together and sit down and talk, just like our founding fathers did back in 78 when the Constitution was finally ratified. It took them 7 years of doing nothing but bickering. And then in 78 they came together and they compromised. Each side gave a little bit. The Constitution was formed, and I think that's been serving us pretty darn well ever since.
Are you suggesting that, in fact, we have conflicting ideas as far as economic growth, or conflicting ideas as far as what should be allowed to see economic growth? And can I expound upon that?
Sure.
What I mean by that, again, because you have the insider's view from your time served, do you feel as if there has been conflicting ideas in place, or ideas that aren't economically feasible? I mean, and I'm not saying that these aren't, but we have the hydroponics that was brought, the amusement park where the town spent almost $200,000 to order a report on, the idea of a water park. I mean, are you saying that there's people opposed to that, or if in fact the communication lines aren't open to allow these projects to come to fruition?
I think you're always going to have a set of the population that is going to want to see no growth. You have a set of the population that wants to see growth, but limited and controlled growth. You have a set of the population that wants to see growth, period.
Can that be defined in the retirees, the people that don't want to see an impact on their residential living, and then finally the people that actually do need a job to support themselves?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and we do need jobs. We need stuff. We need things for our families. We need things for our children. We need to supply them with a good education. We need to train them. We need to get back to job training in our schools and in our colleges. We need to look at bringing some type of what I call medium level. I don't care if it's manufacturing or what have you, but we need to bring some jobs into this town. And we're going to have to do things to help that along. And I see one of the biggest things that I would like to continue with, again, if lucky enough to serve the residents of the town, and that is the town and the county working together. They've started to realize that there is a need there. And if we can stay working together and moving forward, as we did somewhat when I was on the board, I see a little more coming together with a couple of the commissioners and this current town board. I want to continue to keep that moving forward, because everybody wins in the end.
I think that you're spot on. One thing I do want to mention, and a town board member, as if you told me last night, in fact has resigned, and she was I think a real benefit for the town. Did you want to say something about Carolyn Endersby's time on the town board?
Well, Carolyn came to the town board. Carolyn's a very educated woman, and she's very knowledgeable. I was a little shocked that when she resigned last night. I was asked for a quote in the paper, and I will say the same thing here as I said there. My wife and I wish her well in her future endeavors, wherever that may take her.
Well, Bill, this concludes our time on tonight, and I do appreciate you being on, and we wish you best of luck in your candidacy for the town board. Thank you so much for watching the show tonight. We'll be back next week at Thursday night, 5:30, with Court Reporter, more political affairs and current events. See you then.
Court Reporter with Stovall and Associates.